Welcome to Transform Today and Do It Again Tomorrow. My name's Rebecca, and I'm a life coach, and I help people step outside of their lives to kind of discover changes they want to make to live each day more fully and authentically. And by doing this, they often find their purpose, their potential, and more meaning and joy. I've seen it so many times, and I'm telling you, it never gets old. It's awesome to witness. So today's episode is going to help you ask yourself some honest questions and pinpoint behaviors and habits you might have gotten into to avoid the actual work you need to do or that you want to do. Times when you've talked about the work instead of actually doing the work. Does that make sense? I call it fake work. And it distracts you and fools you into thinking you're tackling the real work you need to. So this is episode number 20. Talking about the work won't do the work. So let me explain this a little further so you can understand more fully what I'm getting at here. Have you ever had a goal or a task that you wanted to achieve, and instead of doing the work and just digging in and focusing, you did some planning, some research and prep work to get yourself ready to do the work? Have you done that? It sounds good, right? That makes sense. And it does feel good. And I'm not saying it's not necessary, but have you ever just sort of camped out there in the planning and research stage because it was way more comfy than doing the actual work, right? So here's some examples to kind of give you more insight. Say that you want to lose weight or you want to start being more intentional about your food. The quick answer would be to just start small. Do something small every day this week to kind of try that lifestyle on, right? But that can feel intimidating because it's a change. So maybe you've been guilty of doing things to get ready to do this. Like, oh, I'm going to buy the cute yoga pants. I'm going to look for a gym membership. I'm going to watch some videos. I'm going to research some foods on Instagram. I'm going to follow some health experts. I can't say that. Follow some health experts. You're doing all the things, right? And they're all great things, like really good. You're getting some information. But by the end of the week, think about it. You could have made some great progress if you had just walked 10 minutes a day as a way to get started. You could have kept it really simple. So you can see how in this example, the planning and the researching is actually a distraction that gets in the way of doing, right? And it's a great advantage to have access to so much information in our world, but this fire hose of nonstop information, it can be a detriment to progress. I don't know about you, but man, I can go down a rabbit hole if I'm really into a specific topic. I'll read and I'll read and I'll read and not accomplish anything really. And in fact, I kind of end up right where I started because all the articles, they usually kind of contradict each other about what the quote unquote best way to go about something is. So it becomes a waste of time. Have you ever got caught up in this trap of planning and researching and analyzing? Having a goal and talking about it and doing research on how to get there, that's the easy work that tricks us into thinking we're making progress. But most times, just kind of getting to it, jumping in and digging in, that's the only way to immerse ourselves in it and start to learn from what's happening, from our actions and our reactions and just what's going on. You learn from the experience rather than reading about the experience, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong here. This doesn't mean like willy-nilly doing things without being prepared. Like, I'm going to change my life today. No, that's not cool. That's not smart either. Like if you want to change careers, for example, not a great idea to quit your job without a backup plan, especially if you have people who are counting on you, right? So yes, of course, do the research, do the planning, but don't make the best organized spreadsheet and think that that's going to make things happen. Making it happen is what makes it happen, ultimately. Okay, that's all I'm saying here. An example from my own life I can think of to kind of illustrate this idea of getting stuck in prep work to avoid the real work is my career as a writer. I love to write. It's great. But life gets busy, so I don't always make time for it. So what do I do instead? I read articles and blog posts about writing and tips about writing to make it a habit. And guess what? I know all those things. I get it. I do. That's kind of what I'm good at. I have a master's degree in it and I've been an English professor. I know all the things. I've done all the things. But getting the books and reading the articles and even enrolling in online classes about writing that I do not need, those things trick my brain into thinking I'm doing something productive when I actually should keep it simple and just start writing. Just write every day, every single day, no matter what. That slow grunt work, that can feel like you're in the trenches though, right? So gathering more information, more education, or thinking long and hard about your plan of action can all be paths that lead to inaction. And it sounds counterintuitive, right? Like too much prep work sort of paralyzes you from taking that actual first step into action. And I think it's called front-end planning in business. Front-end planning, it's pretty common in project management. And your team plans, they research, they strategize, they analyze. That's great. All these things are actually great and necessary in the business world. The difference is in this situation, the team is always going to move into action, right? Because they're being paid to move into action when we're talking about the business world. It's their job, and they're held accountable. When it comes to us as humans at home, away from the business world, away from our careers, we're doing our own thing, it can be easy to think business practices should work the same way, right? Oh, I should plan and research, it makes sense, but it doesn't work that way. We won't lose our job if we don't stick to our goal of being more organized, for example, at home, right? We won't lose our job if we don't lose the extra 10 pounds we want to, right? It's not the same fear attached to it. The business deal is just fine if we don't start working on our personal relationships or spirituality. So in that regard, there's no fear or tangible incentive in the same way we might feel at our jobs. At your job, there's something at risk. So you might find yourself applying yourself harder at work. So cut yourself some slack. It makes sense. You're a little more scared. I use that term loosely. You're not scared at work, but you're a little more scared because you don't want to lose your job. So at work, you might plan, you might research, but you always move to action, don't you? Because you want that paycheck. So don't be hard on yourself if that same plan of action that you take to work does not work at home, okay? Just want to clear that up because that's something I see pretty often. It's different playing fields, right? So we need to have different plans of action. So now think about a goal or a task that you know you want or you need to get to. Is it getting more active, finding a new job, organizing your home, building better relationships, caring for your mental health, starting your own business, traveling more, enjoying more hobbies, breaking an addiction? Now that's a lot of examples there, so chances are one of them hopefully resonates with you. It's easy to see how dwelling on information gathering can kind of lead to analysis paralysis in those examples, right? It's funny because what I'm telling you is to not get stuck on the information part, yet I'm someone who puts out information. I put out podcasts and I write books. Those are all helpful things, but only if you use them to propel you into action. That's the springboard, right? You can gather information. What I say to people is, you can have input, right? You're inputting things, you're inputting information, but what are you outputting? If you're never outputting anything, you're just a dreamer. You gotta output something. I think so many of us are guilty of reading like self-help books. We let them pump us up with excitement and then we do nothing different. Because reading about something different is not the same as doing the actual tedious work of making changes, right? It makes sense. You're not alone. It's human nature. And think about it this way. When you listen to something like a TED Talk or like a really motivational talk or sermon, you're on fire afterwards, right? You're ready to go. You're like, let's do this. Yes. And then life happens. Blah, blah. You get home. There's laundry. There's bills. There's all the things to do. And the spark that the talk ignited, it goes out. It's squashed. So getting fired up and ready to go feels good, right? It's like sort of a fluffy space because there's no actual work being done. It's massaging your brain without the grit of training your brain. So pep talks and podcasts and self-help books, yes, love it. It's a nice little massage and prep for your brain, but you got to pair that with the grit of training your brain and molding your brain. Okay? And the same goes for like making spreadsheets or dwelling on research, all those tangible analytical steps. It's all action, yeah, but that it keeps you at the surface and allows you to procrastinate. Anybody? Procrastinate the work that it takes. Is this making sense? Or pointing to something in your own life that you want to look at deeper? Usually when I do these episodes, it should kind of spark something that's been at the surface for you. So take a second. Is there something at the surface? We'll get back to that. So why do we do this? Why can we sometimes focus on the easy work on the surface that massages our brains rather than the actual work that challenges our brains? Well, it's safer, right? It feels better. There's no risk of failing, and at the same time, we sort of feel like we're doing something valuable toward reaching our goals. We think devoting time and attention to this thing, that should be enough to kind of nudge us towards action. And we might do this prep work to tell ourselves we're working on it. We're working toward a better time to make this happen. We're just preparing ourselves. But it can freeze us in this holding pattern where we're waiting for a better time when we'll feel more ready and more informed. But here's the ugly truth, you guys. I'm sorry, all the information in the world won't make you feel prepared enough. Nothing prepares you quite like action does. Think of it this way. It's kind of a goofy way to look at it, but are you going to get stronger from lifting weights for 10 minutes a day or by reading about the best techniques in a magazine? It's better to just start where you are, right? And allow yourself to learn and grow as you go. But the key word here is go. You got to go. Okay? So nothing prepares you quite like action. You're going to learn when you jump in. And it doesn't mean be totally unprepared. It means just do a little bit each day as you learn, and you're going to keep growing upon that knowledge. And start where you are, right? Be okay with failing. Learn as you go along. And it's hard to get motivated, right? So don't wait until you get motivated to take that first step, because chances are you're not going to get motivated unless you have something scaring you into it, right? So if you're feeling you sometimes fall into this trap, it's good to have this knowledge, just to be aware, like, oh, I'm doing that thing. You can hold yourself accountable and say, hey, yeah, you're doing that thing again where you're avoiding digging in. Wake up, do something different. So here's some ideas I've come across that have helped me and clients, but you're going to find what works best for you, okay? It's just some starting points I've come across. The first thing is create some boundaries around your research and planning stage to give you a hard and fast deadline, okay? You can read for 20 years on a topic and still not have all the insights from everyone from around the world. So do yourself a favor and limit your research to a specific number of articles, authors, or podcasts, whatever you're looking at. The idea of research and planning is to use the knowledge to move you forward, right? So you can devote time each day to looking into something, but depending on how big of a project it is, you shouldn't be getting stuck on so much research and planning that you're overwhelmed into inaction. So limit the number of things you're looking at. And to create these boundaries, you might want to mark a date on your calendar to end the research and planning stage, right? Because again, you could really go down a rabbit hole and do this for weeks and weeks or years and years. If you have this deadline looming, that might be the thing that scares you. And again, I keep saying the word scare, like it's so bad. I just mean like to nudge you. That's the thing that's going to nudge you. The clock is ticking. The deadline's coming. This deadline is looming. So you might be more efficient, right, about what you spend time looking into because your time is limited. I've got that deadline. It's coming up. So what I do, sometimes it works for me, you can set a timer each day as you do research to create the same sense of urgency, right? I think it's a better word, sense of urgency, rather than being scared. No one wants you to be accomplishing your goals because you're scared. It's a pretty sad existence. If it works, it works, if you're morbid like that. But how about a sense of urgency? So I love a good timer, and I find that to be super helpful. Even when I start to write, I love to write, but getting started, I don't have the motivation. I get that timer out. I'm like, oh, dang, got to get to it. So try the timer. Try setting dates on your calendar to shoot for. That really might help push you out of that comfort zone of, oh, I just got to read one more article. Nope. Set a date for a deadline. So the next thing, we talked about this in the episode about setting goals, but it's applicable here as well. So be very specific about your goal. Stop saying general things like, I'm going to do better about making more friends. Okay, you're not going to because you haven't given yourself an assignment. Instead, lay it out in more specific terms. For example, like, I'm going to join a hiking club this week and set a date to have friends over for dinner and maybe 2 weeks from today. Very specific. In the meantime, sure, you can read the books about how to make friends when you're an introvert and listen to the podcast, do the things that make you feel better. But the rubber meets the road when you do the thing instead of talking about the thing, right? Rubber meets the road. That's an old-fashioned term. But do you get what I mean? You can talk about it all day long, but when you start doing the thing, that's when things change, right? And spoiler alert, you guys, it doesn't make it easier. The task at hand is still challenging. But challenging things, they're worth doing, and they're the path to growth, right? Dang it, it's the truth. It stinks. I wish I could say, oh, the easy things, that's what leads to growth and transformation. Nope, the challenging things, that's the way to do it. So if you can change your mindset and be like, okay, that's the challenging thing, that's good. Got to go down that path that's going to lead to better things. So the next thing, again, this is an ongoing theme in these episodes. Start small. My saying is set the bar low so you don't choke on it. My other saying is find your flavor. I say those things almost every week, meaning find out what works for you and slowly start there so you can still feel like yourself. You're not just doing something to match the person on Instagram or to check a box. You're thinking about what's going to work for me? What's my personality type? What's my energy like? And start there, but start small. If you want to open your own coffee shop, for example, challenge yourself to do 15 minutes of research a day into the business side of it, and maybe 1 hour of actually doing the thing, creating the recipes. Whatever the work looks like to you, make sure you devote time to that. But do small things. Don't think your coffee shop has to open up next year or next month. It doesn't matter. You're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about the nuts and bolts of what do I need to learn? What do I have to do to get there? So start small, find your flavor. The next one is start where you are. Start exactly where you are today. The perfect time does not exist. Remember that small action every day is going to add up way more than gathering all the information without action. Again, as you start, you're going to learn things about yourself that's going to be helpful to continually tweak your process, and that will breathe confidence into you as you go. Have you ever noticed that action has a way of kind of stomping out anxiety and building confidence? And the reason for this is because you're no longer stuck in wondering, oh my gosh, could I do this? I don't know. What does it look like? I don't know. Like your imagination is a more painful spot to be in than reality most days, don't you think? Anxiety is mostly worry about things that haven't happened. So when we're doing it, we're doing the thing, whatever the thing is, and we're proving it to ourselves. Heck yeah, I can do this. Oh, I can. I know because I am doing it. When you can step into that space, that's where confidence grows and action becomes part of who you are. You're not scared of it anymore because you're proving to your mind and your body and your spirit that you can do it because you've done it rather than just talking about it. Okay? And even these small little steps feel like accomplishments. And confidence kind of snowballs into a bigger ball, and it's wonderful. The last thing is try to enjoy the work instead of viewing it as something to get through just to reach a goal, right? Be mindful of the process and don't just do the work to do the work. and suffer through it, right? Be present and try to change your mindset to love the work. This is the thing you want to do. So absorb it, be present, love the work. So you're slowing down and putting your all into the work and enjoying it. I think that's such a big gift when you can change your mindset and just kind of be in this kind of like flow zone where you're like, I'm just doing the work and it's great. I don't know what the end game looks like. I don't know if I'm going to reach my goal. I don't know if my goal is going to change, but you're having a good day. You're digging in and you're enjoying it. And that's not nothing. That's amazing. That's a great gift. So again, recap those. Again, create boundaries and time limits and deadlines to kind of create a sense of urgency. Be very specific with your goals. Start small. Start where you are. Don't sit around and wait for perfection. And be present and enjoy the work. Enjoy each step each day brings to you. If you follow these five steps and pair your planning and research with action, that's the golden key here. Pair those things together, you're going to be amazed at where you are in a month. Not only in reaching your goal, but just enjoying life more fully. And honestly, that's the real treasure here, right? If you can enjoy each day a bit more, that's great. Reaching your goals becomes secondary. Like, oh yeah, I did that thing. That's right. I forgot about that. When we can go after something we want and feel like our life has more meaning as we grow, man, again, that's the real prize. We go from being passive and feeling like we're stuck and like life is just passing us by. We go from that to being the driver who's actually pursuing things, pursuing happiness, joy, and depth and action. When we say we want to be this best version of ourselves, to best serve others, holy cow, that's where life happens. Just saying, I want to be a better version of myself, to best serve others in whatever capacity that is. That's the best stuff right there. And as usual, I want you to now set a timer. Sit down for 10 minutes, jot down some ideas this episode has brought up for you about your own goals and the fake work you might have been doing to avoid the real work. No shame here. Every person in the world has done this. So my friend, you're not alone, okay? I promise. So how are you going to do the real work this week? What's difficult for you? What's kind of scary for you? And what small step will you take today? Write it all out and see what's in there. I know I always say this, but what you write down is really different than what you're thinking. Something happens when you put pen to paper or fingers to the keyboard. Your brain kind of spits out things that you haven't really visited because thoughts are so fleeting. They're in and out. But when you take time to sit with them, I'm telling you, your soul, your gut, your spirit, they're all going to speak up and be like, yes, she's asking me a question. He's asking me a question. Get it out. Just think about the things you've been avoiding. Could be big, could be small. Life coaching is not about, oh, it's for people who want to totally transform their lives and change everything. Nope. You could have one small goal, and that's what you want to start with. Write it out. Write what's authentically speaking to you, okay? You guys, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, this was episode number 20, and I'm going to take a few months off from the podcast here before I dive into season 2. I'm writing a book, and I want to put my focus into that and follow my own advice and put work into it every day and make that be my only focus. Well, life, kids, career, all the things. But I really want to work on that every day. So I'm going to take a few months off. If there are any topics you want me to talk about next season, reach out to me on my website. It's RebeccaRine.com, RebeccaRine.com. Just reach out to me there. Let me know what you want me to talk about. My goal, again, is to make wellness and well-being a conversation that feels normal and not hokey or like woo-woo, right? So please be a part of it. Let's make it an open conversation. Tell me what topics you need covered, and I got you. So just let me know. I encourage you to go back and listen to all the episodes too. They always kind of give you easy tools to put into action every week. Please rate and share the episode so I can cast a wider net and reach more people and spread the word that life coaching is literally for everyone who wants more from life, okay? So I'll be back in a few months with a completed book. You see how I made a solid deadline to put a fire in my belly? Instead of just saying, I want to write a book one day. Nope, I'm giving it 3 months. I'll be back in 3 months with the written book. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website as well if you want to get updates on when the book will be ready. It's going to be a lot like the tone you hear in this podcast, right? Just delivering non-woo-woo wellness to anyone from any walk of life. So that's the kind of book that's coming your way soon. I'm really excited to share it with you and to write it and to be done with it. So stay tuned for more updates on that. So be well. You're awesome.